Hi everyone, Patricia Zegelar here. In this video, I'm going to talk about the relationship between fear and conflict. And in times of great stress and difficulty and uncertainty, it is really important, critically important that we get that there is a direct line between conflict and fear and conflict. We can create a lot of damage in our outer worlds if we don't understand how fear is showing up. And there's a lot of things that we can do to ensure that we're not doing that damage. So fear and conflict. So I've talked a lot about fear in previous videos. I do encourage you to go back and watch those. I think it's so important, that we are able to understand what our internal realities are like during times of great stress. This is doing inner work. And I believe that for leaders to be doing inner work, that is at least as important, if not more important, than the great outer work that we do. So understanding our fear response is inner work for sure. So fear, I believe, really, there's just one fear. And that one fear is that I will not be able to cope with whatever's going to happen next. Okay? So it's this feeling that I'm just not going to be able to cope. But it's an internal feeling. And so then what happens is I will have external behaviors, or I will show up in my outer world in a way that I want to get relief. I want to get relief from feeling that I'm not going to be able to cope, relief from the fear. And that is what conflict is all about. Conflict shows up in my outer world because I either A, am trying to reduce the fear I have internally, or B, I'm trying to positively influence circumstances, external circumstances, so that I don't have as much fear, right? But in both cases, it's about providing me relief. And so this is a little bit of a reframe on conflict, right? We tend to think about conflict as being something that is just solely bad and awful, something that we try to avoid, that we don't need, and nothing could be further from the truth. I have worked in the field of conflict for about 25 years. I've worked with hundreds of leaders to be embracing their conflict in a way to be having more positive results. Conflict is really just a way that we get to learn more about a situation. But, and this is a big but, only when we understand what the relationship is between conflict and fear, right? So when we can get that we're trying to, just create relief for ourselves, we can get more deliberate on what that looks like. When I'm not deliberate, then this thing called negative conflict tension, comes into play, in which I start to, through my own feelings of being, upset or feeling overwhelmed or feeling anxious or feeling stressed, right? And I start to then, in my outer world, be avoiding, maybe withdrawing, denying, ignoring, right? We call this inaction. It's a little misnomer because I'm still doing things, but we call it inaction in terms of how I am interfacing with conflict. Or still negative conflict, I can be blaming, I can be shaming, I can be criticizing or judging. And so notice that every one of these is likely to not give me relief, right? That everyone, right? So in the blaming, I'm just trying to discharge my own sense that I can't cope onto somebody else. But it never, ever can achieve in any long-term or sustainable way, let alone into the next moment, the real relief that I'm looking for, which has to do, with confidence and surety, to get a hold of whatever my internal fear response is. So negative conflict, and right, this is generally what we think about when we think about conflict, is not helpful and it's not useful. It doesn't solve my problem of getting the relief, nor does it solve the problem in my external world about what it is I'm trying to positively influence. So avoiding, denying, ignoring, blaming, shaming, criticizing, all fundamental responses to this uncomfortable conflict tension that we feel as a result of the internal fear response. And all of those things are not going to yield what I need for them to yield, or what my needs are in terms of being more confident and solving problems. However, there is positive conflict tension. And with positive conflict tension, I am still feeling the same sense that I might not be able to cope with what's going to happen next. I'm still feeling uncomfortable, perhaps anxious, perhaps stressful, perhaps overwhelmed. And what I do with that energy, that conflict tension, is I turn it positive. And how do I do that? I reach out to other people. I connect with others and I share. That we start to elevate the conversations around not just what do we need to influence in our external world, what decisions do we need to make, what policies do we need to change, but I also start to share how I'm feeling about what might happen or what might not happen. I start to share what my fears are, right? What my feelings are. This, and we call that vulnerability. And there's lots of brilliant research around how needed in leadership right now vulnerability is. And this is why, is that we get to take the energy that is so uncomfortable and at times overwhelming, and we get to give it a positive channel. And then that's where we get to learn. We get to learn more about the external circumstances we're trying to positively influence. And I get to learn more. I get to test whether my fear response is true, that I can't cope. And typically what I learn is that I can cope, right? Like we start working together in a way that we literally help each other to be more confident and have more self-efficacy. So embracing the positive conflict tension is so critically important during these really stressful times. This is how we get to have the highest quality problem solving and at the same time reduce how overwhelmed that we are feeling. So I really encourage you to connect with other people and to be sharing what it is you are experiencing. This is the true spirit of collaboration, and this is ultimately what will get us to the other side of this world pandemic in a meaningful and effective way. Love to hear your comments on this. You can write those below. If you want to know more, I have developed what I call the Conflict Manifesto. And if you go on my website, patriciaz.ca, patricia.ca, there's a place there, I think it's a pop-up or something, that you can literally download the Conflict Manifesto, and it reframes conflict as being a positive force in which we get to learn more about ourselves, others, and literally how to, again, be positively impacting our external circumstances. All right, I hope you found this useful. I'll be back with another video tomorrow, and in the meantime, I hope you stay healthy, and I hope you stay sane.